Good morning. Smudging ceremonies involve the burning of sacred plants. When the plant is burned, it is transformed into smoke, which represents the spirit of the plant, which can travel through the air. Today, we are going to smudge our sanctuary with sweetgrass and sage. They are both sacred plants to many indigenous people. Sweetgrass, or Wikanash in the Wampanoag language, is a fragrant grass that is used in ceremonies, as an herbal medicine, and is woven into baskets or clothing. Just as its fragrance is pleasing to people, it is believed to attract good or positive spirits. Sage has a pungent smell when burned and is used to clear negative energies and purify. We will be burning the sage to clear any negative energies in this space, and sweetgrass to attract love and peace to all who are gathered here. There are 4 elements used in this ceremony. The plants represent the earth. The abalone shell represents the water. The feather represents the air. And the flame represents the fire. We are so grateful for all of these gifts, which are necessary to sustain our lives on this earth. Starting with the east. Moving to the south. To the west. To the north. Aho and amen.
Good morning. Welcome to First Parish in Brookline. I definitely have the best view. Wow. Welcome back to those of you who are returning, whether you've been here for decades or just joined us this year. And a very warm welcome to those who are here for the first time. We're so glad you're here with us for our special UU In-Gathering Sunday. It is so good to see everyone this morning. First Parish is a welcoming Unitarian Universalist congregation, open and affirming of all people. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts or abilities you may have, however you identify your gender or sexual orientation, wherever your life and faith journey has taken you, you're welcome here. Our service today is led by our senior minister, Reverend Lisa Perry Wood, with the support of the First Parish Worship Committee, our talented choir, and our dedicated staff, Keith, Lacey, and Judd. We look forward to the many and varied forms of worship that we'll all be creating together over the next year. Today's service is one of our multi-generational services. That means making it as kid and family friendly as possible, and we hope it will be enjoyable to people of all ages. In this, our very first service of our congregational year, we'll celebrate the traditional UU water communion as a symbol of our coming back together after our summer services in Lyon Chapel. And you'll hear more about that ritual a little bit later. Now I'd like to invite Jean Thompson Grove, chair of our parish board, to tell us about something new for this year. Jean?
Good morning. So yeah, I'm Jean Thompson Grove. I've been on the board for 2 years. This is my third, and this year I'll be the parish board chair, if the board will have me. Seems like they're okay with it. I'd like to just take a minute to introduce the board. Is that okay, Susan? Sure. Yeah. And so if you could just stand so you can be identified. We all have name tags that also identify as board members, but Janet Britcher is our vice chair. I saw her just come in. Yeah. Carla Bear is our clerk. Charles Sandmill is our treasurer. Where's Charles? There he is. Ellen Blaney, Dave Demersion, Michaela Cody, Steve Pratt-Otto, and Bob Williamson up in the choir. And here's Janet Britcher. We've been already, yeah, let's give them a round of applause. If you're ever wondering if you would want to be on the parish board, I just want to say a couple of sentences about what we've been up to. And I think you might think to yourself, oh, next year, I think I'll be on parish board. We started our time together at Charles Sandmill and Barbara Simonetti's home in July, where old board members and new board members came together. And board members who were leaving talked to us about what they wished they had known when they started their terms 3 years before. And we learned a lot and had some good laughs. We then from there went to Puzzle Break in Newton Center, and we attempted to get out of, attempted to solve the problem and to get out of 2 rooms, escape from 2 rooms together. We got out of the first room. We didn't actually get close to getting out of the second room, but we laughed a lot. We learned a lot about who we are as a team, and we were impressed by each other's persistence and innovative thinking. We had our regular board meeting in August where we oriented ourselves to decision-making and policy that had been passed in the past and did some urgent work. And then yesterday had our board retreat. Dave Demergen hosted us at WeWork in Boston. And I'll be doing some writing this week, so it'll be in the weekly update. But we came up with a covenant that we feel quite enthusiastic about and eager to live by, not just in our work as a parish board, but in our relationship with you, the congregation. And we've begun to identify some focus areas for the year. So that's what we've been up to. A couple of things to know. Our board meetings starting in October will alternate the first Sunday of the month and the first Tuesday of the month. We'll let you know kind of when the board meeting is before it happens. Because our board meetings are open and we want to make sure that more people have an opportunity to join us. And then the other thing is that we'll be reaching out to committees and inviting various committees to be with us at the beginning of each board meeting so we can fulfill our responsibility to both know what's happening, to connect each other, and to be of support. So that's the board. So here's what I was actually asked to come up to do, is to talk about hospitality and a decision we made at the annual meeting that we're betting nobody remembers. Many of us on the board didn't remember making this decision because it was embedded in the budget. So I went to the dictionary and I Googled hospitality. And here's what kept coming up: the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. And to echo what Sue just said as she welcomed us, there are no strangers here. Whether you're visiting today, whether you're back from a long trip away last year, whether you came a couple times last year and decided to give it a try this year, whether you grew up in this church and now are back, we're not strangers. We all belong. And in Brene Brown's words, belonging is different from fitting in. You don't have to change who you are to fit in here. You get to belong exactly as you are. And we look forward to being changed by your presence here, because we know there are no old groups with new people. There are just new groups. And so one way we get to know each other a little bit better is following service. We have something for about 45 minutes or so called hospitality. And the purpose is to get to know each other. It is to check in with each other. It is to connect. And typically we do that over coffee and tea and some light snacks. And for the last year, our parish administrator, Elisa Joyce, has been traveling to Costco one afternoon a week and buying those snacks at considerable cost, both in terms of time and money. So as we tried to trim the budget last year, we took out the line item for hospitality food. It's not meant to be lunch, just meant to be some light snacks. And we said as a community that we would take that up ourselves. So every week, Elisa will be reminding us that that's what we said we would do. And there'll be a link to a sign-up genie or sign-up genius. And you get to say, yes, today I'll bring graham crackers for the kids, right? So that's what I've brought, along with some fruit. Others of you will say, I'll bring some cheese and crackers for 12 people. I'll bring some hummus and vegetables for just 12 people. We don't want the money to go much over $10. And we'll have what we have. Some of you will have an event at your house on Saturday night, and you'll bring us the leftover pastries. Some of us will be in the mood to make a coffee cake, and you'll bring that. But whatever we have, it will be what we'll have. And there'll always be a reminder. So that's hospitality. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. If this is your first time visiting us, or you haven't done so before, please take a moment to fill out one of the yellow visitor cards in your pews, looks like that, and place it in the offering plate as it comes around. If you're interested in religious education, our regular pre-K to 7th grade program begins next week, though we do have nursery care today for our youngest parishioners. You're welcome to take your child through the door on my left and follow the signs to the nursery room. It's on the ground floor. Everyone is warmly invited to join us for conversation and refreshments, as Jean told us, after the service through the door to Lion Chapel. And we encourage anyone, new or returning, to pick up one of these stripe mugs at coffee hour to show your interest in sharing conversation with others who you may not know or you may not know very well. Welcome, one and all, and let us all worship together.
Good morning, First Parish. Good morning. I think you could do better. Good morning, First Parish. Good morning. That's great, thank you. It is so very good to be here again in this beautiful space to reconnect with our ever-growing First Parish family. Our focus this year, our year-long focus, will be living our faith heritage. We'll be grounded in our 7 principles and in the mission of this congregation. We begin this month with our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And we begin by acknowledging how we got here, to this place, to this land. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hopes of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are important to build mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We are gathered here at First Parish in Brookline, standing on the ancestral land of the Massachusetts people, who lived here for at least 12,000 years before the Europeans came. Their traditional homeland was spread out across what we now call the greater Boston area, as well as suburbs and towns to the west and south of Boston. The name Massachusetts is an Algonquin word meaning at the great hill, referring to the Blue Hills overlooking Boston Harbor from the south, which was a sacred and ceremonial area. Two small groups of Massachusetts people continue to live in the areas of Ponkapoag in Canton and in Natick. Today, we pay respect to their elders, past and present. This week, and next week in particular, we'll consider the legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement, as well as the loss of our connection to the earth and all living things that remain with us here today. We begin by telling hard truths and also by expressing our gratitude to the earth and to these ancestors. May it be so.
At this time, I'd like to invite our two newest staff members, our ministerial intern, Judd Wolfskill, and our custodian, Derek Banks, to come forward to light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith the world over. As they light the chalice, please join me in our unison affirmation printed in your order of service. We'll say it first in English and then Spanish. We give ourselves one unto another, covenanting to walk together as a congregation, promising faithfully to watch over one another and to delight for love to abide in our midst. Nos agregamos y nos comprometemos a caminar juntos como congregación, prometiendo con mucha fe cuidarnos mutuamente y deleitarnos en el amor que permanecerá entre nosotros. Each week, we also light candles of peace and hope, each candle representing a different place on earth that we want to lift up and remember this morning as a sacred encounter with the world. Of course, there are untold number of places on earth that need peace, as well as bright beacons of hope. Today, we remember two places that we especially hold close in this service and throughout the week ahead. After each of the candles is lit, we will speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. Our candle of peace is lit for the Bahamas, which was devastated by Hurricane Dorian this week, with a death toll at 30 and rapidly rising. Peace, salam, shalom. Our candle of hope is lit for schools all over the world. May they be able to open their doors in peace and maintain their true focus on teaching and learning. Peace, salam, shalom. And now we invite the young people to join Lacey and Reverend Lisa on the chancel for the time of all ages.
Good morning, all. Morning. Who's having a good morning? No one. No one is having a good morning.
Some look more enthusiastic than others.
All right, that's okay. Hopefully things will improve, okay? All right, so a lot of what we're talking about today in worship is water. And we're right after the time for all ages, we're going to end up doing the water ceremony, and we're going to talk about that. But I want to talk to you about water first, okay? Water is very important to all living beings, including us, because we're a living being. And it can take a lot of forms. So think about it for a second. What forms do you see water in? Yes? Who has seen water in the last week? All right. What did that water look like? Clear. Okay, so that one must probably be in its, liquid form, right? Yes, all right. In the back? Ocean water, yes. Also liquid form, but in the ocean, yes. In the lake, okay. Yep, Lucas? Ice, yes. In its solid form. And there are lots of kinds of ice, right? There are glaciers. So I saw glaciers this summer. That's a form of water. Yes. Oh, yes, there was humidity. That is also a form of water. That is, it's harder to appreciate that form of water, isn't it? Other ways that we see water? Steam, yes, all right. So there are, Lucas? It's like steam, yeah, that's the gas form, right? So water comes in lots of forms, but we also do lots of things with water. Okay, so name for me something that we do with water. We drink it, yes. Other things we do with water. We put out fires. That is an excellent use, yes. We freeze it, that's how we make ice. Yes, we use it for recreation, also known as swimming, skiing, surfing, lots of kinds of water recreation, fishing, lots of kinds of ways. Other ways that you've used water lately. Has anyone taken a bath lately? There we go. Couple of bathers in the mix. All right. We wash dishes sometimes in water. And our bodies are mostly made of water. Did you know that? Yes, so your body has tons of water in it too. All of these are kind of places that we interact, and ways that we use water, right? And there are tons more ways. We could do this all day. We could keep listing ways that we use water. Water keeps us alive. And without water, we couldn't survive, plants couldn't survive, animals couldn't survive, our planet couldn't survive. So we all need water so that we can survive in this world. Now, lots of Unitarian Universalist churches will actually use water in some important ways in church, okay? How have you ever seen water used in church? What? No, have we ever seen water in this room, in this building? Yes? Yes, the church has a bathroom and we use water in there, yes. Let's think about yes. And there's a sink in the kitchen. Okay. So, let's think about in this room. Has anyone seen water used in this room? Yes? In water bottles. So we bring water into the church, yes? And there's water right here, yeah. So, there are a couple of ways that we might see water in church, like in the church when we're in this part of the building, okay? We're going to see water today, and that's for something called water communion, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But there are other ways that we use water. When we bless babies, has anyone seen a baby naming or a baby blessing here in church? Okay. So sometimes what we do is we take a rose and we put it in water and we dab that water on the baby, right? Sometimes when we bless people, we use water to either bless their hands or put it on their body in some other ways. And obviously, we all drink water here in church as well. So those are all ways that we're going to see. Most of the water here in this church that we use actually comes from today. So when we first start, when we start the year, we bring water. Each of us brings water from a different place, and we pour it into these bowls. And then that water gets kept for the rest of the year. And any time that we need to use special water, or we need water for not drinking, we don't drink this water, but anytime we need water for anything else, we have water from today. So water is an ancient part of our planet. It's been here as long as the planet has been here. Our water ceremony is a little newer, okay? What we think of as the tradition of the water ceremony, is actually just started in 1980, which might seem like a long time to all of you, since none of you were alive then. But to the rest of us, 1980 wasn't, so long ago. And the water ceremony was actually created by two UU women, lay women, who were putting together a service. Now, I'm going to read this part because I think people's names are really important, and getting people's names right are really important, and I didn't want to forget these women's names properly, okay? So, the name of those two women was Carolyn McDade and Lucille Shuck Longview. And they're actually the people who created the worship service where we had our first water communion. And they made that worship service for something really fancy called the Women and Religion Continental Convocation of Unitarian Universalist. Yeah, I don't think there's an acronym for that, friends. But in the 1970s and culminating in this thing in the 1980s, there was a lot of work being done in our Unitarian Universalist Association to talk about how we elevate the role of women in our communities, because that was part of, a larger conversation that was happening in our world about how to best, include women in all aspects of life. And so this convocation for women in religion was happening there to bring together, women from all over the Unitarian Universalist world to talk about the important issues for women in religion at the time. And so these two wonderful women were thinking, what is some way that we can help people connect to one another and to the importance of life and to our planet? And they came up with water, that water is the thing that does that, because we are water in our bodies, and we need water to survive, as does the planet. And so they had this great idea that they would bring women together from all over the world, and they would each bring water from the places that they came from. And they would pour that water into a bowl together, and that together, the waters of the whole world would mix together. And that water came from the Rio Grande River, a river up in Canada, from the east, from the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, and all sorts of water that were important to people, including rainwater from the state of Maryland, right? And so all of those waters mixed together, and that was our very first UU water communion. And so today, the tradition that we have participates in a tradition that was started, 30 plus years ago. And something that we're just about to participate in today.
Thank you, Lacey. And now you can all return to your seats. Thank you. We gather in community this morning, carrying love, hope, and courageous faith, reminding ourselves of this home we share, a home we can come back to, a home we welcome all to make their own. We gather this morning with gifts of water, symbols of the water we have been present with and which has been present to us. Water may call to mind summer showers, thunderstorms, dewy mornings, misty evenings, or moments at ocean sides, poolsides, riversides, lakesides, swimming, hiking, fishing, strolling. Who were we with when we were there, even while we were alone? Perhaps we found ourselves in the presence of water during a moment of grief, or birth, or rebirth, or perhaps in a mundane place whose sacredness is still palpable. Did you feel the interdependent web of all existence coming alive in those moments? Some of us may have a growing awareness of how this very water is like strands of a web, and how the web is us and it is everything. Perhaps the ties to spiritual companions throughout the world come clearer and clearer, bringing to mind the monsoon rains that our UU partners in the Philippines and India know, or the churning ocean that the UUs in Tierra del Fuego know, the rivers and valleys of Transylvania, or Lake Victoria and Lake Tanganyika, present to UUs in Kenya, Uganda, and Burundi. What brings these companions like us to the water? What does the water bring to them? What does it bring us? And now, you'll be invited by our ushers row by row, beginning at the back of the sanctuary. As they guide you, you will come forward to add water if you brought some water to one of these 3 bowls. And if you did not bring water, we have pitchers of water, so you can pour a bit into the bowls. All of these waters will then be combined in one big bowl. They will be blessed. We will bless them today. Then they will be purified and preserved to use throughout the year for rituals and rites of passage. As we move through this ritual, we encourage each of you to take care of yourselves. There may be some who would like to remain in the pew during the ritual. Some may need some kind of assistance. Please take and ask for what you need. Blessed be. Come, let us blend the waters of our lives together. To your right. Go out to your right. Go that way. Now we are going to bless the water with a responsive blessing. And you will have one line. Your response is, "This water is sacred." And I will indicate to you when to respond. This water is sacred. It is made sacred by the many hands that have poured it with intention and love. The many stories that each drop contains, the many lives surrounding it in this unique moment, connected by commitment and faith. This water is sacred. May it continue to flow through this community with shining reflections of the unique gifts that flow through each of its members. This water is sacred. May it continue to nurture this community with sustaining hope that we journey together through ripples of growth and change. This water is sacred. May it continue to bless this community with reminders of our collective responsibility to one another and to the world. This water is sacred. May its ripples be a reminder that the changes and growth within this community bring movement and transformation to the world beyond our doors. This water is sacred. May its purity offer grace to our community and the willingness to forgive ourselves and one another when we make mistakes. This water is sacred. In moments when we are confused or uncertain, may it bring us clarity of purpose and commitment. This water is sacred. In moments when the reservoirs of hearts and spirits are drained by sorrow or pain, may it nourish them with the knowledge that we are surrounded by a deep and abundant love. This water is sacred. Did you feel the interdependent web of all existence coming alive in those moments just now? Some of you may have had the gift of a momentary spiritual epiphany. Others of you a growing awareness of how this very water is like strands of the web, and how the web is us and is everything. How glorious, how sacred, how peaceful. Let us rest and rely on this truth in a moment of silence. Blessed be, and amen.
The offering will now be gratefully received. The ushers, please come forward.
for all of the gifts that you have given and all of the bounty that we have received. We are truly grateful, and we say thank you. Sky Woman Falling is a version of a creation story that is familiar to many indigenous people. This is a story of creation. The storytellers begin by calling upon those who came before us, who passed the stories down to us, for we are only messengers. In the beginning was the sky world.
She fell like a maple seed, pirouetting on an autumn breeze. A column of light streamed from a hole in the sky world, marking her path where only darkness had been before. It took her a long time to fall. In fear, or maybe hope, she clutched a bundle tightly in her hand. Hurtling downward, she saw only dark water below. But in that emptiness, there were many eyes gazing up at the sudden shaft of light. They saw there a small object, a mere dust mote in the beam. As it grew closer, they could see that it was a woman, arms outstretched, long black hair billowing behind as she spiraled toward them. The geese nodded at one another and rose together from the water in a wave of goose music. She felt the beat of their wings as they flew beneath to break her fall. Far from the only home she'd ever known, she caught her breath at the warm embrace of soft feathers as they gently carried her downward. And so it began.
The geese could not hold the woman above the water for much longer, so they called the council to decide what to do. Resting on their wings, she saw them all gather: loon, otters, swans, beavers, fish of all kinds. A great turtle floated in their midst and offered his back for her to rest upon. Gratefully, she stepped from the goose wing onto the dome of his shells. The others understood that she needed land for her home and discussed how they might serve her need. The deep divers among them had heard of mud at the bottom of the water and agreed to go find some. Loon dove first, but the distance was too far, and after a long while, he surfaced with nothing to show for his effort. One by one, the other animals offered to help: otter, beaver, sturgeon, but the depth, the darkness, and the pressure were too great for even the greatest of swimmers. They returned gasping for air, with their head ringing. Some did not return at all.
Soon, only Muskrat, little Muskrat, was left, the weakest diver of them all. And they volunteered to go, while the others looked on doubtfully. Their small legs flailed as they worked their way downward, and Muskrat was gone for a very long time. The others waited and waited for Muskrat to return, fearing the worst for their relative. But before long, a stream of bubbles rose before Muskrat popped up, and the others noticed that Muskrat's paws was tightly clenched, and when they opened it, there was a small, handful of mud. Turtle said, "Here, put it on my back, and I will hold it." Sky Woman bent and spread the mud with her hands across the shell of the turtle. Moved by the extraordinary gifts of the animals, she sang in thanksgiving and began to dance, her feet caressing the earth.
The land grew and grew as she danced for thanks, from the dab of mud on Turtle's back until the whole earth was made, not by Sky Woman alone, but from the alchemy of all the animals' gifts, coupled with her deep gratitude. Together, they formed what we know today as Turtle Island, our home. Like any good guest, Sky Woman had not come empty-handed. The bundle was still clutched in her hand. When she toppled from the hold in the sky world, she had reached out to grab onto the tree of life that grew there. In her grasp were branches, fruits, and seeds of all kinds of plants. These she scattered onto the new ground and carefully tended each one until the world turned from brown to green. Sunlight streamed through the hole from the sky world, allowing the seeds to flourish. Wild grasses, flowers, trees, and medicines spread everywhere. And now that the animals too had plenty to eat, many came to live with her on Turtle Island.
Now, please rise as you are willing and able to sing our hymn of preparation, number 1069 in the Teal hymnal, Ancient Mother. I just have to express my great, great gratitude to our wonderful choir. And I have to say that today, Keith gave me the gift of allowing me to choose most of the music, and I am so deeply grateful. Thank you so much. It's such a gift when that happens. So in the beginning was the creation story. And the creation story that you heard was a composite from Robin Wall Kimmerer, told in the beginning of her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which has become kind of another Bible for me, one among many. Kimmerer says that she liked to imagine that when Sky Woman scattered her handfuls of seeds across Turtle Island, she was sowing food for our bodies, also for our spirits, for our minds, for our emotions. Sky Woman was leaving us teachers. The plants tell Sky Woman's story. We need to learn. Kimmerer talked about the sweetgrass scent, and it was irresistible when she spoke about it. So I sent away for a sweetgrass braid. That's what Anne used for our smudging today, along with the sage. The smell of this braid to pass around for you. It spoke to me of something that I barely remembered, a childhood connection to the earth that I have to admit I had lost in recent years in all the busyness of life. So I'm going to pass this around. I invite you to sniff it. I'm hoping it will make its way around the sanctuary and find its way back to our table in the front at the end of the service. There was a tree outside my bedroom window when I was growing up, and that tree was big. It was as tall or taller than our house, and our house was 3 stories tall. I felt a real connection to that tree, looking out of my window into its branches, climbing up into its branches. I was a reader. I loved books. I still love books. And I'd often climb up with a book, not very far, just far enough that I could lean my back against the trunk of the tree and feel held and cradled by its branches. Trees were my friends. And any time that I felt sad or lonely or a little bit lost, right through the middle years of my life, I could find a tree. I could sit and lean my back against the tree, or sometimes wrap my arms and just put my cheek on its bark. Yes, I was a tree mother. It's true. That sweetgrass scent brought all of those memories back to me, and something more. Robin Kimmerer shares Indigenous knowledge and so much learning that I'll share with you this week and also next week. I learned that all living things for Indigenous people have names and pronouns, and they deserve respect. I gave it to you. The sweetgrass braid is not an it, it's a she. It deserves our respect. It has personhood. In some native languages I learned, the term for plants translates as those who take care of us. We need to know the ways of the ones who take care of us. And we need to be able to know how to take care of them. So as the sweetgrass moves around, introduce yourself. The learnings that I experienced from this book were like rememberings. And I thought that if I had some of these plants, I could reconnect more deeply. I could grow them. We could grow them. And then gather them every year. Make them into a braid. I learned about gathering. I learned you never gather the very first grass that you find, because it might be the last. And you want the first grass to speak well of you to the others of her kind. I learned that each person, human or not, is bound to every other being, every other form of life, in a reciprocal, in a give-take relationship. And that just as we have a duty to all beings, they have a duty to us. We talk a lot about caring for the earth, also cares for us. If an animal gives its milk or its life to feed or clothe us, we are bound to support its life. Reciprocity. If we receive a stream's gift of pure water, we are responsible for returning a gift in kind. For Indigenous people, part of a human's education is knowing, understanding those duties, how to perform them, and that has been lost to most of us. We need to reclaim that somehow. Decades ago, I lived with my family on the coast of Oregon, with trees all around behind us and looking at a distance at the Pacific Ocean. In those trees behind us in that forest was a stand of old-growth spruce trees, some of them as big around as a small car. They were huge. We had a neighbor who had 2 small girls, and I had one, and these 3 little girls were convinced that there were fairies in those woods. Now, we wanted to believe in fairies. I want to believe in fairies. And we wanted to connect our girls with fairyland. So sometimes they would find a little note in their shoe or slipper in the morning, inviting them to come to fairyland for a tea party. And when they got there, they would find a miniature tea set, little tiny snacks, a little note, a little fairy bell to ring. It might have been make-believe, but it was magical for all of us every single time. We knew that the land that those trees stood on was owned by Publishers Paper, which was owned by the Los Angeles Times. And soon we heard that that whole forest behind us was going to be clear-cut, including those spruce trees. We wrote letters, circulated petitions, and then with tears, we said goodbye to those trees. The day that the big trucks came and started to cut that forest, we took the children to the beach. The fairies, we said, had moved to other trees nearby, as fairies will. They can live anywhere. And there were trees, a stand of trees on our neighbor's land. We continue to nurture their relationship with the fairies among those trees. Now, Indigenous people have no sense of personal property. The more something is shared, the more valuable it becomes. And land is a gift for all. Water is a gift. And there is a ceremony when any life, any gift is taken. Today, we engaged in a ceremony. We did smudging for the purification of our space. We acknowledged sitting on the indigenous ancestral lands of the Massachusetts people. We made an offering of water, and we expressed our gratitude. I learned that among the Potawatomi people, the people of Robin Wall Kimmerer, women are keepers of water. They carry the sacred water to ceremonies, and they act on her behalf. Women have a natural bond with water because we are both life bearers, says Kimmerer. We carry our babies in internal ponds, and they come forth into the world on a wave of water. It's our responsibility to safeguard water for all our relations. Ceremony is the way that we make belonging to family, to people, to land. We, as Kimmerer says, we marry the mundane to the sacred. Can we learn that? Can we behave as if everything in the world is a gift? We were so very, very sad when those trees were cut. There was no ceremony, no one but us thank them, I don't think, before they cut them. But I learned something new this week. I learned that when a big redwood or cedar tree dies or is cut down, what is called a fairy ring grows around it from the mother root system. I like that. In Oregon, in those years, we saw the next spring there was green fluff on the hills. And soon trees began to grow, and several decades later, I hear from my friends who are still living there that those trees are big, but they will never again be trees as big around as a small car. But what I learned is trees just want to grow. And we may not be able to forgive ourselves or each other for the things that we've done, but the earth, the trees, they forgive us. So with my idea of growing sweetgrass, I sent away for 2 sweetgrass plants. There they are. They look a little droopy, but the directions said, don't worry. Plant them, they will be fine. And we will do that. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I do not have a green thumb, so I'm asking for help. I've already asked my wife Zoe, I've asked my sister, who's an incredible gardener. I know there are wonderful gardeners right here in this sanctuary. We'll plant one here on First Parish ground. I'll plant one in Lexington where I can tend it there. We will grow our own sweetgrass. I learned that sweetgrass has died off on Cape Cod. I learned this from Anne. But the Wampanoag tribe are trying to bring it back, and we will help. We'll do that too, in our own small way. Indigenous herbalists pay attention to when plants come to you, bringing you something that you need to learn. Plants know how to make food and medicine. Using this. From light and water, and then they give it away. A teacher comes, they say, when you are ready. If you ignore this presence, it will speak to you more loudly. But you have to be quiet to hear. Sweetgrass. We are listening now, and we humbly ask, please teach us. Amen. Okay. Now please rise as you are willing and able and join in singing our closing hymn, Home, which is number 1064 in the Teal hymnal.
Still
Please join me in our unison affirmation as Reverend Lisa extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this flame and not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until...
Please take the hand or touch the elbow or the shoulder of someone near you for our benediction. Come. Friends, we have shared in a beautiful morning together. Take all of this with you. Take what you have learned here out into the world and be a blessing to all whom you meet, and may you yourselves be blessed. Amen.